right, so we got Coach Kolat and Quinn Kinner, episode 16, season recap. We finished up NCAA championships in Philadelphia 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. I had a little bit of time to decompress and reflect on, what I think was a pretty successful year with some hills and valleys in between, but ended on a high note. And then, fortunate enough to have Coach Kolat here to kind of share his thoughts, his perspective. And Quinn and I are going to kind of bounce some stuff off him. So, thanks, Coach, for being here. And, I really just wanted to hand the mic over to you and let you get the opportunity to talk about the season. And, we ended with a 6-4 dual record, but I know, like I said a second ago, it's like there were some highs in there and then a couple lows. But I think ultimately ended on a high note. And, so just, your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think how you said it. We ran more duels. I have, intentionally put more duels into the schedule. This year, I'm trying to put another tournament in there. I'm also trying to get more duels in there, right? I just want to see us wrestling more and competing more. But I like the duel side of it because I like the team atmosphere. I think the guys thrive on it. I think you really see teams compete. You've got to be ready to go, and you only get one match in a dual meet, and you have to be ready for it. Tournaments, you see guys they can get hot as it goes on, and if you really want to be good and highly competitive and try to dominate the competition, you're able to get up for every match. And so we started with duels. We started off with Pitt, and I think we all know we were flat. We walked as a staff. We walked away and said, the score didn't reflect the wrestling, but I think we lost 6 or 7 matches in the last period with them getting the last takedown or the last points on the board, which made the difference in the match, which then lopsided that dual meet. But I didn't walk away like, man, what happened? Like, oh, we wrestled off. We weren't firing yet at that time in the year, and then we came back, and we hit Drexel, and we hit UNC, and UNC came down to the last bout of the evening, came down to a heavyweight. Drexel we competed solid against. I think next we hit Iowa State, which we're going to go back there. I think it was a really good environment. It was a great fan base. I mean, it's Iowa wrestling, right? And so the fan base was solid. A lot of people there. I thought, we wrestled really good in that duel. I thought we fought. I thought we battled. I thought guys were trying to win, trying to score the last points. I think, and I remember in our 25-pound that duel, our 25-pounder really helped us in that one because he was out of the match, got the last takedown. And when you do that, that's always really big, right? We always tell guys like, continuing to score. Even if there's not enough time on the clock, getting that last takedown, even if that takedown is going to get you a win, it shows that you're still wrestling, and that really helped us in that dual meet. And we rolled through. We got into Soldier Salute. In Vegas. Vegas, not a great showing. Not a great showing for some of the guys. And then Danny and Coder just did what Danny and Coder do. They were consistent. The other guys, a really bad performance on their part. Some of the guys, it was new for them to be in Vegas. Things we've said lots of times, but it's really, we always say it's better when it comes from a team member, a team captain. And I mean, Coder said this at the end of the year in one of our duels that, our freshmen wrestled like freshmen. And, some guys got to get past that thinking. They it doesn't matter your time frame, doesn't matter what year you come to win, you come to wrestle, you come to dominate, and then good things will happen. So I think those guys woke up after Vegas, and then when we hit Soldier Salute, we rolled through American. American was a crazy duel. It was, right? We had a couple guys get pinned. Still won the duel. All the guys who won got bonus points. Then we rolled into Soldier Salute. I think at Soldier Salute is when we started to peak. I think that's where we got the schedule right at that time of year, and we started to see an uptick in our wrestling. Soldier guys look good. Guys perform. Danny and Coder again put themselves in the finals. So we kind of saw that direction going. I think at that point is when Coder really, he made a jump. I know that mentally he made a jump.
Yeah.
I mean, his mind was always good, but I think we just saw another level from him at that moment. Danny was solid all the way through the tournament. Hit a solid ranked guy from Iowa in the finals. I remember him coming off the mat disappointed, and he knew he could have performed better. But you need those matches. You have to go through those things sometimes. But I think Soldier Salute was really good for us and really good for those two, especially. And then I think we hit, was it Lehigh and Harvard?
Lehigh, Harvard. Yeah.
Lehigh, Harvard. And Lehigh, we were getting the last point scored. We were, staying in our matches, staying in our positions. We just outsmarted them and wrestled solid. And then the next day was Harvard. And again, we had a really dominant performance against Harvard. I think we sat back, and when we started, looking at Bucknell, Bucknell's been better than years past. They're going to be better. They're going to be just as good next year. I think the majority of their guys are back. And so they're doing a good job up there, which is good for the conference. Everybody's getting better. You're always concerned about every door you go in. We went in there like, this one on paper looks like this, like this, like this. And we just had a performance like we had versus Lehigh.
Yeah.
So that, so we had our start. We went up and down a little bit, and then we were on our way up.
Yeah.
Then we rolled in the Army, and we saw our freshmen wrestle like freshmen. And, we gave that duel away is what happened. We saw guys get exposed to a rivalry duel in a environment, and, the guys we can count on did their job, and we needed some other guys because they're consistent. And then we needed some other guys to do their job, and we didn't get that part done. Probably good though, right before conference. And then when we got into conference, I thought we started to, we hit it again, Coder dominant. Danny looked really good. Danny lost a hard fought battle wrestling Casella in the finals. Casella's a hard guy to wrestle. You have to wrestle. It was the second time he wrestled him, and we made adjustments from the first time. And he's so long, and I thought Danny did everything right. There were some things we needed to do more of. But he definitely made adjustments to his wrestling. So that's what we want to see as a staff and to see from him is that he made adjustments from the previous time. And I can't remember. Did we lose that one in overtime? Was that overtime? Yeah, we came down to ride out, right?
Ultimate ride out. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where but that guy's, he's hard to wrestle. He's, he fakes one time, takes one shot, and he gets near the edge, he's out of bounds, and he's like 8 feet tall for the weight class. Then we had 7 guys or 6 guys take third, suffer losses and come back. I mean, we looked good in the backside, and
we everybody finished odd except for Danny and Peyton Thomas. Everybody finished odd. Yeah.
The secondary.
Yeah. So, we looked good. I thought that was a good rebound, and that wound up taking third. We did win we tied Lehigh for the Patriot League championship. So we tied there. We took third at EIWA, and then we took, 3 guys to nationals. We were hoping to get a couple guys in on a bid. Well, I think we all know the EIWA this year was crazy. We saw, I wouldn't say the aftermath of the Ivy Leagues breaking off. What we saw is all conferences really aligning this year with, coaches ranking and things like that. I mean, we've said it. It's been going on, and the NCAA needs to step in and do something about it. We've talked to them about it, written to them about it. There needs to be a change. We have to have a change, or it's not good for wrestling. So we saw ourselves get less bids, take 3 guys. But I thought we took the right 3 guys. I thought with what we were going in there, we were going to do what we did. I would say Peyton Thomas definitely didn't wrestle the way he's capable of wrestling. I think he was a freshman who made it to the NCAA tournament. I think he was burned up a little bit mentally, but I think he'll be better for it now. I mean, he's been there and he's got experience. I mean, Danny Wass got experience last year, and then look what he did. Just recapping those guys, you got a firstie in Coder who was so close to being on the stand years earlier. You wanted to see him do it this time, right? Like you really want to, and then he couldn't pick a better way to do it. I'm sure for his parents it was stressful, but he had to stop Jameson, had to do it in sudden death, had to do it when everything's on the line, and he did it, so all of us are really fired up for that. But I think what was really important is Danny saying that, and that's where you talk about guys feeding off each other. He wanted to do it too, like he didn't want to just be Coder. And so those two really linked up because Danny and Coder didn't really hang out on a regular basis in the season. They all had their groups.
Yeah.
But when you get to nationals, everything changes. One guy starts hanging out with one coach a little bit more because he's just easing his stress and, taking walks around the arena or doing whatever. But then we roomed those two together. Yeah. We thought that was going to be a good roommate situation, and they just fed off each other, and it was great energy for both of them. They just kept going and going and going. We finished 21st in the country. We would have been 18. Coder threw his headgear and lost a team point. We saw 80 headgears go flying, and the point. A couple of times, Coder just, took his headgear off like a thousand other wrestlers and just flung it to our corner. And I just saw that referee. I knew he was going to take a point. And that was the difference us being 21 or 18.
Yeah.
I just kind of find that crazy. I hear more and more people complain like we are the only sport that takes points off the board, as a penalty or something. I really think that should be a warning to the wrestler. Hey, you do it again, you're ejected out of the tournament or something like that, right? You shouldn't be taking team points and anything. But I was really happy for how they both finished up. And then Danny started his run, coming back through there, and I didn't realize that he had to wrestle a former teammate when he was at Blair.
Yeah.
So I think there might have been a little bit of stress with him in that one. He never lets on, right? Danny never lets on whether he's stressing out or not. He just smiles the whole time. Got it done, not in the same fashion as Coach. I was just as excited for Danny to win, but then there were some stall calls I wasn't happy about. So, I gave Danny a high five, and then I went right to talk to the ref.
Yeah, you went straight to the ref.
Those calls cost somebody, and I would say they were legitimate. It was just the timing of one. I was like, that was a really crazy timing of a call, in such an important match. And now the officials are mic'd up. And
okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, they're communicating through microphones. They let us know that. And when I remember talking to him, he's like, well, Kerry, I already agreed with my outside guy. I'm like, that doesn't matter if you guys agree. The timing was not good timing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're mic'd up and communicating, so it takes some pressure off. I think they get a chance to get some input before they hit somebody. But Danny got it done too, and I think we finished up awesome. We had a great fan base there. I mean, we had in our section 100 people, but then I saw other people with Navy gear walking all around, who weren't in our section. And, hearing them announce it, 2 times to the arena, United States Naval Academy, another All-American. So having 2 All-Americans here, which is what the Academy used to do on a regular basis, which I said last year, I thought we could have 2 last year. We had 1. But then I said, we're in a position with what we have in the room and the mindset of the guys that we have, the guys, we should be having guys on the stand every year. And then our job is to make sure we get the recruiting's right. We keep putting the right people. We're a young team. So we should be able to do something.
Quinn, I'm gonna cut you off because he hit on something that I think we can jump right into is, you kind of talked about Josh's journey. He's been close, leading up to this year, and, he got it done. And in some dramatic fashion. And, you know, that's a moment that I know you'll remember for a long time. And he certainly as well. But, you know, you kind of touched on this too, but how do you think that type of stuff rubbed off on Danny, and how important it is to you to have him back in the room next year?
I don't know how much Coder's winning rubs off on Danny, because Coder's an acquired taste, right? He's like, he's like a different kind of guy. And he's a good leader. He leads in his way. He leads by example. He doesn't mess around. But definitely at the NCAA tournament, I'm Coder going first and busting through makes you not want to be the guy who doesn't bust through. You know, maybe without Coder there, maybe that it may, because, you know, maybe there's just a little bit, right? You never know, right? Or maybe without Danny there, you know, Coder comes short, right? They both just fed off each other. But now having a guy who's an All-American, who's been there, who's done it, and now, hey, you've been there. Now it's how high up on the stand are we going, right? Are we really trained to be a national champion? And is your life going to revolve around that? You know, here the next 2 years. And if Danny does that, Danny will pick our team up another 3 or 4 notches, you know, because he'll insist on it. He'll want it. He's been there. He can't go backwards. Yeah. And then other guys will want to join him. And at the end of the year, after the NCAA tournament, I've been in the room. I've seen some guys working out. Everybody's always fired up 2 weeks after the national tournament. I'm the guy. I saw somebody else there. I saw a guy that I beat there, you know? Yeah. The real difference is the consistency. And now is that level of consistency going to be from here all the way until you're done? You know, everybody can be fired up for a couple of weeks. Yeah. What I want to see if there, and I think we have, I feel confident there's one guy outside of Danny who man, just I kind of see it already. He's getting that kind of look about him, like he's going to be there next year, and he's not just going to show up to be there. He's going to do something, you know, and hopefully he's big jumps.
Yeah. To that point about those two bouncing off of each other at the NCAA tournament, Josh, actually, I was talking to him after he got it done, and he was talking to me about that, the backside wrestling back, and he was like, I was watching Danny win, and I just thought to myself, he was like, I gotta place higher than Danny. I can't.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good competitiveness among teammates, right? Because they both love each other. They'll definitely brag that one guy did better than the other, and they were doing it from day one, and it's all good fun. But that is the competitive that you want on the team.
Yeah, just trying to one up each other.
Yeah,
and their bracket, like the way they played through the bracket, almost identically mirrored one another. You know, Josh won that extra match Friday night.
Yeah.
But other than that, like they were identical. So they definitely fed off each other in that regard.
Yeah, and I remember Danny wrestled Haynes tough. You know,
that was a tough match, and on a shot to tie it up or take the win.
I mean, I think Danny's first 2 matches, he was really the best wrestler we've seen this year. You know, at the national tournament, in terms of poise and being loose and being actively scoring points. It was the best wrestling he had done, and I mean that's what you want. I'm like, okay, his best wrestling's coming out. You know, and we just got to keep it coming out for the next 3 days, you know, and did a really good job. But, you know, and ESPN's run the tournament, so it was long nights. I mean, you guys remember, I think Danny's last match, I think him and I were in the tunnel at 10:35 before we walked out there. Then he's got to head back and cut weight and get up in the morning, cut some weight, and, you know, go weigh in and start it all over. But you kind of get numb to the pain when you're doing it, for sure.
Yeah, there's so much adrenaline.
You lose track of time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I said, I'm sure there's people on here, because you guys all know I've been watching that show Severance. I just felt like I was in the tunnel all the time. I'm like, I don't really remember being back at the hotel, and I'm like, I just feel like we just never left the arena, you know.
You get it's your innie and your outie. You're in the arena and they out of the arena.
Yeah, man.
Kept making those jokes. I was just laughing. I had never seen the show. No idea what anybody was talking about.
Get with the program, Quinn.
I was just wanted to jump in, and I mean, we talked about Danny and Josh getting the All-American, and especially I mean, obviously you're happy for them both pretty much equally, you love them both equally, but just Josh working for 4 years to get that one. But I guess outside of those two moments, what were your highlights of the season, of the year?
Man, highlights of the season. Well, I think we can break it down individually. Bring it team wise. The soldier salute. I thought like that was a really good performance for us. And
I think a lot of guys.
I'm sorry, you cut.
Sorry, I just said I think a lot of guys turned a corner there. Josh, Danny. Yeah.
Yep, they turned the corner for sure, and that's what I knew. I'm like, okay, we're in a right spot, and we've got guys who can wrestle individually, and this is going to help at conference, and this is going to help at nationals. And I think Soldier Salute helped us get ready. They run a good event. I like their arena. I like the way it's set up. I like what they're doing. You know, they're outpacing these other tournaments. You know, we'll go back there again. I keep telling them that they need to change the name of it. You know, Sailor Salute or something needs to happen. But that was a good one for us. The role on the duels when we were well, but you know, Lehigh's a big rivalry for the Navy fans. You know, so that was a big one for us. And I would even say Bucknell. I thought Bucknell was going to be, on paper, one of our hardest duels. We just wrestled really good, you know, and you know, we caught momentum and kept momentum, and everybody kept feeding off each other. And then the backside of conference, you know, some guys were wrestling for, in essence, nothing. You know, we knew like even third, they weren't going to go to nationals, but you are wrestling for something. You're wrestling, you know, for the next season, right? We tell the guys all the time, if you can't get what you came for, you get the next best thing. You know, that's what I kept telling, you know, at NCAs and Danny, like, you know, you came here to be a national champion. Well, that's off the table now, so we get the next best thing. So those guys did that, and that'll be a push in the next season, you know. And we've talked about this before. I know, Quinn, you and I talked about it, but like Ryan Deacon from Northwestern. One of the best teaching matches I love to show everybody is Deacon was not going to beat Nolf. I think he was losing by 14 points, and Nolf went down, and Deacon rode him for the whole third period. Nobody had ridden Dolph. He wasn't going to beat him at that point, so he's like, "Well, I'm going to beat him in the top. I'm going to ride him," you know. And that guy rode Jason Nolf, and that guy eventually became a national champion. There's a character trait to that. There's an obsession with dominating, an obsession with winning, an obsession to take, okay, this is what I can get. Winners always find a way to win something. There's something there today. And if it is first, it's third, and if you can't take third, you chase fifth. You know, and that's really, I mean, that's the grit side. So that was really, really good, you know, to see that. And then obviously the finish at nationals with those two getting on the stand.
Yeah. It's a good one. Good little recap. Quinn, I'm going to steal your next question because it's my turn. But how would you say this team's different than the previous four that you've coached at Navy?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Was that Quinn's question?
Well, I wrote all these questions, but Quinn was going to ask that one.
Well, different times, right? So I mean, obviously took over after the pandemic. I hate that we say pandemic. I'm like, I mean, was it really a pandemic? It's like kind of craziness we say.
There was some pandemonium going on, but
you know, so I those guys I inherited, you know, and I love those dudes like Cody Tribus, Schedule, Carabello, day. Man, I wish I had more time with some of those guys. I only got them for one season, you know. All my captains have been solid for me. Tribus really helped me because I was brand new to the academy, not understanding the lingo, not understanding the abbreviations. I'd always just get an email, and then I would say, Cody, what does this mean? He'd be like, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. You know, it doesn't apply to you. So it's a great learning curve. You know, schedule just, I mean, both of them, they just were solid. So that was a fun, you know, short season. So we started in January. We were playing the silly COVID rules. You know, we only had one partner, you couldn't touch anybody else for 3 weeks, and you know, all those rules. And then we were recruiting like crazy. And I mean, Danny Wask, I remember committing him. And well, Coder, let me back up. Coder was my first recruit. I always forget to tell people, Coder was my first recruit that committed. And when he committed, we always joked and called him number one. Nicknamed him number one. I thought I was going to come in as a 25-pounder, but we said, look, if you commit, it'll probably get the ball rolling. It'll get the dam to burst, right? And then we landed like another 11 guys in the course of 2 weeks. And then Danny Wask, man, he might have came right after Coder. Yeah. And Danny, like, we talked one time, and then he wanted to jump on the phone like 24 hours later and commit. I'm like, you've never even been here. Like, you've never even been here. But you know what I always like about those guys, and it's my personality, and I do have an affinity for people like this. And you'll make mistakes doing this too, but I think most of it, you go with your gut. Like, they just pulled the trigger. They just said, yeah, I like it. I like the staff. I like what it's going to do. Let's go. You know, because we all know you can keep searching and searching and searching. We can always find things wrong, and we can go somewhere else. So I know kids who say, I'm going to take 12, but that's ridiculous. Like, you know, they're down to 3, and let's make a decision is what we do. And that's why those guys were just like, they pulled the trigger. Any recruit that we've liked, and you know, they don't have the pros and cons list and all that stuff. Like, they have a feel, and they know what they want. And they pull the trigger. I'm like, yeah, this guy's going to be right for us, you know? So those guys got going with recruiting. Then I had Allen and Miranda and Shane Finney, you know, the second year. Back to Danny. So when Danny committed, it was like, I looked at it and I was like, oh, I really won't see him for 3 years. We waited for that. You know, that's crazy recruiting. We're like, man, I'm excited, but I'm like, it's 3 years away.
Senior naps.
Yes. I was like, it's 3 years, man, before this guy is ever going to really be here, you know. But Danny was making an impact with recruiting. You know, he talked to everybody. He's connected to everybody. You know, then we had Cerniglia and all those guys come through. And then obviously, you know, Key was always the funniest dude to ever coach, because I didn't know what was going to happen half the time. I knew he could win. I knew he was going to win. Like, if you put the thing about David, and the pressure there was no pressure to him, where other kids get bothered by pressure. David was like, if the chips are really down, David would come through. He would come through. So like, but other times, if it was just a duel, I was like, man, what's he gonna do right now? So I never knew what he was gonna. David had his way, but you could count on him. And Cerniglia beat Army for us. 1, 2, 3. I mean, I think 2 years or 3 years, he sealed the duel. You know, like that dude, when it came down, we're like, okay, this guy's gonna lock it up again. So you have those memories. And then Grady's, you know, his group, his captain here. Grady, a lot of people don't know this, wound up becoming the champion. You know, he didn't wrestle his first year because he had a knee issue, and he found this weird issue. He couldn't even train. And then the next year he was winning the duels, but he just really wasn't performing in competition. And, you know, that was one of those things where you had to have a really hard conversation, because I remember sitting him down and saying, look, I'm going to wrestle this guy. You know, he's performing better. And he could have gone people go 2 ways. He could have said, screw these guys. But he came back even more fired up. And maybe had we not done that, it may have been just enough. And it wasn't a long-term plan. It was just the other guy was just outperforming, and then he didn't happen again, and he just blew up and was great for it. Yeah. And made a lot of adjustments in his game, and you know, was a good leader. And So I mean, it's hard. I think of the guys so much more than I'm thinking about the blocks of the teams.
Seasons.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, there was just then Jake. You know, I would say Jacob Allen. You know, we brought Coder in. We thought Coder was going to be 25. Allen was 33, and then Coder gets here, and they're both identical in size. Coder's edging him out a little bit, and you know, Jacob. You know, knew Jacob was a full team player at all times, and without him even saying it, like I knew him at 25 would make us a better team. And I mean, he just came to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to go to 25," and he was all muscle. Never had a weight issue with him. Dude shrunk his body down. 4.0 student. You know, and then he locked up his senior year. He locked up the duel at 25 by winning it. You know, so that was kind of his way out. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of good guys that came through. You know, I'm sure I missed people. I just it just goes through my head.
Yeah, it's interesting that you did it that way instead of talking about, you know, Army duels or like All-Americans or conference champions. Like, it's funny how you remembered each year kind of based on the type of men that you were leading.
Yes.
Which I think speaks volumes to the program in general and the type of people that you're working with. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No. Yeah, I miss those guys. Now they're off doing some really cool stuff. Some of them, you know.
Yeah.
Like, they're all doing cool stuff. Some of them are doing some really cool stuff. So.
All right, Quinn, you're up. You steal mine.
Yeah, just kind of bouncing off that idea is, how is this coaching staff different than your previous years? I know we added a bunch of guys. I mean, me and Peyton included. And then how does that change? How do you think it sets us up for coming seasons? With just like Barry, Ben, me and Peyton.
Well, I think everyone, you guys being on the club side of things, and the you know, and time and coming in on the staff side of things, everybody aligns with the same goals and what they want. And I think we all start. We all know the process of how to get there. I think what's really important is the guys figuring out each coach, which is good for them. Like, we're all good for them, but definitely one guy's going to be a better communicator. One, you know, guys are going to be drawn to one guy or this guy. So our goals align. But what's really good is we don't have the same personality. I find that silly when everybody's got the same personality. You can see programs have success by doing that. We've all said, like, that's kind of like the cookie cutter thing. But all that comes to it goes downward slide, and then you're like, what do we do? Well, let's do what we've been doing, but let's do it harder, right? And you really have to mix up. Sometimes you have to you got to adjust what you're doing. So having all these personalities and all these different perspectives. I mean, I think we know Barry has a vast perspective where all of us can kind of sit back and say, when Barry says something, we can take the piece and that makes sense, right? He sees things a little differently because he's been an assistant coach, he's been a head coach, he's done it all. He's been at big time programs. All of us, you know, me being where I've been as a head coach, Ty coming from being a head coach at the Division II level, the JUCO level, then he was at the D1 level. Now he's with us. Brings his dimension. Then you two on the club side have brought a great dimension that we didn't have. We didn't have a staff over there before, you know, and hopefully we're adding another guy here soon, I hope. So we have 3 guys on that side. But I know the guys love it. I mean, the comments I heard from people were like, you know, I wish I'd had this staff, you know, a couple years ago, you know, because the energy level is different. The energy level is different than years past.
Yeah. So you think, you know, after a year under this staff's belt, I guess, because there's some growing pains probably with that and adjustments for the team to, you know, and Quinn and I obviously weren't here to witness that or be part of it. But I'm sure it was different for some of the guys that came back. And I don't know if the training was different or if it was like you kind of said, the energy was different. Like, but building upon that, I think sets us up well leading into next year and in AAA and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think training level has to come up. You know, there's another 3 or 4 gears that we got to come up, and I think seeing the guys seeing what we did this year, and then Danny back in the room, there's a greater expectation of where you should be, where you're expected to be, and where you should be.
Yeah.
But you know, they got to want that for themselves as much as we say this is where Navy stands.
Right. You know, that's a great segue too. So what are, you know, we've had a week and a half of reflection, but I know you're always looking forward. Like, what are you looking forward to next year as far as like goals and expectations?
An attitude change. I think more guys like, look, I mean, tons of people say they want to be a national champ. We've all sat down in front of people and they say that. They'll always give you the right answer. And we've talked about this week, you know, walking in the room and saying, oh, I don't have 2 guys now. I've got 5 guys who think that way, you know, and you see it, you know. 5 is a good number, you know, that's 50% of your team. And that rubs off on other guys. And you know, when that guy graduates, if he's putting that much pressure and consistency on himself to win a national title, then we know the guy behind him is going to be much better for it too when that guy moves on. And then the train is rolling, and it's easier once it's rolling to keep feeding it, getting it going. But you know, we just hit year 5, and I think we're getting going. It's running down the tracks now, and now it's just the guys keep doing their part to push it down that way. So I would like to know that when I walk in, it's, yeah, this guy's really here, this guy's really here, this guy's really here, this guy's really here. You know, you want to see more of that energy and
yeah,
and training's got to come up. I think they're not more focus on each other, and more focused on each bout in the room, not treat it like a practice bout, which we. You know, that's where you see the right guys and the wrong guys. Some guys are treating it, oh, this is just practice. And other guys are treating every match like this could be the match that's different from me being an All-American or different from me being a national champion, and approaching it that way. And the fun days are the fun days, right? Going in there and you're going to roll. Of course, we do those too. But days where you need to be sharp and that they need to be up for it.
Yeah. Earlier we were talking about freshmen wrestling like freshmen, and it kind of leads into my next question, but I wanted to add on to that just because we're talking to you in particular. Coming from somebody who, I mean, you came in, obviously your high school career was incredible, and then your freshman year was pretty seamless. You know what I mean? Like, you came in and you dominated, and you had a really good freshman year. How do you get this incoming class and years after incoming classes to kind of have that seamless transition, to not go out and wrestle like freshmen, but go out and expect to dominate and look to win a national title?
When you're upperclassmen, make it hard. When you walk into a room, you know, after next season, we come back because we're young and we have 3 All-Americans training in the room, or 2 All-Americans in the national championship. Like, that's when that change starts to happen, right? One guy can do it, you know. One guy winning a national title can set the whole place on fire as well, because you're around that guy. You sweat with him every day. You run up against him. You drill with him. Now you know, okay, I've been doing it, and so that's what we got to stack the room. We need more guys to bust through next year, and so then the guys who come in as freshmen, that's what we always try. There's no nothing in your past is going to predetermine what you're going to do, right? And I always say, I won 4 titles. And you can say, well, maybe I had a leg up to win a national title. But Vincent Robinson this year at 125 didn't win a state title. I've seen other guys do it who've won a state title, won NCAAs, or won a couple state titles. Doesn't matter. It's if the training is right and your head, the head on your shoulders is right, you're really in that dominant mode of, I know I'm going to win. It's just how many points, like the pressure is internal. How many points am I going to put on this guy? Especially if it's really personal. Like we talked in the office. It's if somebody said, oh, you know, this guy's ranked number 1 and this guy's number 4. If that were me, I'd be like, he's not really 4. I'm going to make sure everybody knows he's like number 15. He's going to be 20 points below me. You know,
Yeah.
we only you're only going to get a small group of those guys, but that rubs off the other way. But when we have, 3 Danny Wask or 3 whatever in their training, it's going to be easier for them to understand this is what you do and you can do it. And nobody's waiting on you. We're not waiting on you to get good. We recruited you. You're good. Like, we know you're good. There's a reason we recruited you. You're pretty good, but it's just unlocking your potential. And if we can help you unlock that potential, and that's really what coaches are doing. We're unlocking your potential. Like, if you want it unlocked, you really want to go through and make the sacrifices that it takes. And the sacrifice is just, you might have to work out 3 times a day the right way. Not 3 times, 3 hours in every session. Might be 30 minutes extra drill, an extra 45 minutes of lifting, extra conditioning if you fell over in the match, knowing those things and fixing them.
Yeah. That was a good question. Breaking through, getting the freshman out of that wrestling like freshman mindset. Last one on here that I had, and if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to, but maybe touch on, because you talked about your expectations and some of the goals for next year. I think maybe it's just me because I've been a fly on the wall during these conversations and in the room. But I feel like there's some good energy around this incoming class coming in next year.
I can't. I'm not allowed to talk about them.
Okay.
Can't talk about it. You can't talk about recruit until they're here. So,
well, that makes that easy.
Makes it easy. But yeah, I feel like some good guys coming in.
Well, that's really all I had. I think that was a pretty good summary of the year. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about or add?
No, I like what you guys have been doing. I really like what we've done on the RTC. The RTC side really made a difference with our guys having more guys to go to for coaching, more guys to go to for hands-on stuff outside of us. Like, so what our alumni have done and the parents have done and the donors when it comes to the club, like, all the great programs have a great RTC, and our RTC is getting better. And like we talked about, we're working on trying to add another guy, putting that guy on the bigger side of the spectrum a little bit. And then maybe we circle back the following year and go to somebody really on the bottom side, the lightweight completely side. So I think our RTC every year is just going to keep getting better. The donations keep getting better, and it's been a huge difference, and we saw impact from it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Johnny Carey would say, direct impact, right?
Direct
impact we saw.
All right. Well, thanks, Coach. Thanks, Quinn.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me on.
We'll see you tomorrow.